Welcome to the big event here. Glad you can attend. It's great seeing you all. It seems like a nice turnout, and traffic didn't hold people back, it appears. Roman, quick question for you. What are the typical conditions that venture capitalists face when they are trying to do business in Bavaria? I ran a hedge fund, so I kind of maybe more experienced at this than some of the people in the audience. Can you add a little color to ease of access, cross-border trading, efficiency in the markets, and maybe basically a broader overview for the participants?
Okay. Well, first of all, I represent here the venture capital company of the state of Bavaria. And so we always looking for partners to invest in Bavaria together with us. Why we do this? Because we have a lot of good ideas. We have a lot of good companies. One of our partner companies you can hear today and later on. 2 years ago, there has been another company here representing, and was a great success, I think. But we have not enough money in Europe, and also not in Germany, and also not in Bavaria. The problem is that venture capital isn't so long in the market as in USA. And you have much more success with this kind of capital in USA, and you have learned to work with it, and a lot of people earned money with it, and so the next generation of investments are coming, and this cascade isn't so in Europe up to now. And so we are also today, my duty is, and why I'm here, to say, hey, we have a lot of really interesting companies in Bavaria, not in the beginning stage, not in the early stage, not in the seed phase, that we do it alone. But if it is interesting to go over the water, to come to USA, to come to the international market, then we need not $1 or $2 million, we need maybe 5 or 10 or $15 million, and then it is interesting also for investments of US VCs or for greater companies to invest in such Bavarian companies. And so, last sentence, our new fund, Mr. Hübsch told before, is able to be a partner also in the number of $4, $5, and $6 million additional to the money the private funds would do.
We're very interested on our side of the lake here in the hedge fund or asset management business in helping companies in Germany get listed into the US, find a broad audience, especially for cross-border trading where they have something innovative in Germany that would have a perfect application here in the United States.
Okay,
so helping them build a transatlantic business. I think it's very interesting, and it's good to hear that it's a simple, straight-through process.
Oh, last sentence for this, we and Bayern Capital is also allowed to hold inks. It's also possible you have a switch on, for example, Peer is notified on NASDAQ, and there was no problem to do a reverse merger with an US company who was listed on NASDAQ before. And so we also we have our up-to-date investor of Oxford shares on the New York Stock Exchange listed, and so it is no problem to change the market. We are allowed to go with you also if it's necessary, and if it is fine for the business, there's no problem to do it with us together.
Perfect. Any questions? Well, that's a quiet group. Good morning. Any questions? All right, wunderbar. Thank you very much. Roger, we think of Bavaria as an innovation hub, certainly a place in the world not unlike Silicon Valley. Tell us about the interaction between R&D companies in Bavaria, if they're in the US and they're thinking about doing business in Europe, or if they're in Bavaria and aren't so aware of this option.
It works if the universities provide the space, and I don't necessarily just mean the physical space, although that's important if you're running big laser laboratories, but also the intellectual space and the ability to do a lot of the dirty work with government regulators and so on to allow these kinds of joint ventures and co-participation agreements to flourish, and not to be hemmed in by a single template, but to do whatever works the best. Many things are going on in the labs, whether at Michigan or at Stanford Chicago or Princeton, probably about 20 American research-based universities have and not all very familiar. I mean, Texas Tech, for example, is one of the great ones at doing these kinds of business partnerships. Almost all of these 21st century projects require multiple talents. It's not just one very smart professor in his little cubby with a blackboard and a test tube. These joint ventures can sometimes be very, very expensive and more than the private sector alone could handle. The famous God particle is a joint venture of 3 universities and institutes in Europe and the University of Michigan. So I think that's the way to think about it. Eliminating congestion in the system is very important. And I think that Bavaria, as well as a couple of other places, I would put the University of Vienna in the group, and several Swiss organizations in the group, and 1 or 2 French, have experience in doing these business university partnerships that are working and basically yield handsome returns for everybody.
Sounds like the conditions have become easier over time, a more simple straight-through interaction between academia and commercial enterprise. Give us an example of a success story, something people would understand.
I think probably the most well-known success stories are in the development of new kinds of seeds that are adaptable to arid climates, adaptable to the difficult growing conditions in Africa, and the companies like Monsanto and universities that they've worked with, including Oxford University in England, have been leaders in these kinds of advances. Now, once again, you always end up with a constraint, and the constraint is I consider it a bias, not necessarily well thought out, against genetically modified organisms. Sometimes they're well grounded in science, and sometimes they're basically grounded in rhetoric. And that is, so you have real successes in that field, and you have a new breed of opposition. And Germany as a whole is on the wrong side of that equation.
Certainly an interesting time with the euro and the dollar moving back and forth, right?
Actually, it's been moving less back and forth in the stock markets. The volatility in exchange rates has basically come down from the worst of the Greek crisis, but the volatility in the stock markets are way up. And I think that's many, many reasons for that. But the biggest reason, of course, is the change in views about the near-term future of the Chinese economy and the Chinese financial system at large. And in that sense, both Germany and the United States are both being sort of what you might call innocent bystanders hurt in the stock market. And in the biotech sector in the U.S. particularly took a tremendous shellacking in that new, more volatile period of the last few months.
I was going to mention health, life sciences, healthcare, bioceuticals, biochemistry. You want to give us a little comment on the macro and microeconomics?
Well, the microeconomics that I like to tell everybody to think about, including my former friends in Washington, well, they're still my friends, but my former colleagues in Washington, is that what basically distinguishes those industries and other high-tech industries is that they live or die on their intellectual property. And the biggest question you face as investors and as entrepreneurs is, how do we safeguard it? And the safeguarding of intellectual property is so central to the business having a true franchise value that it's astonishing to me how high-tech people, and I've seen it even in the defense industry, where you would think they would be most aware of it in the high-tech defense industry, they have permitted themselves to be hacked. They have permitted themselves to have very weak protections against cyber intrusions. And as a result, their intellectual property, which is really the core competence of the business, has been highly tarnished or sometimes completely stolen. So I think that's probably the single most critical success factor in the high-tech area of cross-national cooperation is in the area of protecting intellectual property and securing protection against hackers.
That's exactly correct. In the entertainment business, we all know content is king. In the biotech space, our life sciences, IP, intellectual property, is key. And protecting that, you've all heard about Sony and the intrusions on the part of the Northern Koreans, allegedly. Cybersecurity, protecting your IP or content is critical. So the right partners and the right locations who understand the merits of that argument.
The other thing you've got to realize is that the hacker industry is truly global. So you can have a young PhD in computer science from, say, Bulgaria, who can't get a job teaching computer science in Bulgaria, and he's struck out even in Cambridge, Mass. They are capable of basically selling those skills to the highest bidder, and that opens up the buy side of those skills can be government intelligence agencies or military operations. And I'm just picking on Bulgaria out of the hat. I have no particular knowledge of anything going on in Bulgaria. I thought that was a safe choice as an example.
No Bulgarians here. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Roger? Oktoberfest is over, guys. Come on. Okay. Joan, a couple of questions. How do you find the right partner? What's the best forum? How do you interact? How do you begin the journey? What's the resource base?
One of the things that Germany has is structures. And there are a lot of different structures and resources out there, and you just have to know who can help you find those structures and resources. Invest in Bavaria obviously is one of them. If you're looking at going to Bavaria, I mean, they'll handhold you. It's hand-holding from giving you tours of different possible partners at the university and industry level. And that's one of their strengths, that they're working at the interface of science and industry. And so they are one of the options that you can look at. There's also, on the larger side in Germany, there's Germany Trade and Invest. And in Germany Trade and Invest even has a website called ixpos.de, expos.de, and there also, that will give you an overview of the entire country in the area of investing in Bavaria, of moving your company over to Germany. And it also has an overview of visa, tax, all of these issues as well. And then at the state level, so there's the federal level, but there's also the state level, so all the different states have their own organizations. The Association of German Commerce and Industry as well will give you a lot of support, and Bavaria's area center, it's called, they call them in Germany Industrie- und Handelskammer. Bavaria has the largest of all of them in all of Germany. I think they have over 350,000 chambers within Bavaria. Another resource is Bayern International. Bayern is Bavarian German, for those of you who don't know. And they are also connected with the Ministry of Economic Affairs, as is Invest in Bavaria. So those are some of the general resources. Now I'm going to go into the research side. Very specifically, research is Horizon 2020. I don't know if any of you have heard of that. That has over 80 billion euros available. Okay, and for companies as well. So companies can be involved in this. And I'll just give you one example of something that just as a call for a challenge, the 3 million euro challenge to improve air quality in cities. And specifically, this prize was created to develop an innovative and well-designed material solution that will reduce the concentration of particulate matter in the air. So that's just an example of one challenge. So they've got these $3, $4, $5, $6 million challenges for businesses to come over and work in these areas. And there's a lot of funding, 80 billion euros right now. So those are just some examples of resources. Our center, German Center for Research and Innovation, is also an organization that facilitates those collaborations. So we work with the government, industry, and academia, and can connect you to the appropriate individuals. And we're based here in New York.
Any questions for Joan?
Germany and Europe will be taking themselves out of the data mining game. Privacy will stop them from using this raw material that the United States and the other parts of the world don't have these inhibitions about.
Right.
And won't that set
That
them
will
back?
that'll be a we would call it a legacy cost from that attitude. But you know, if you have very strong, passionate views, whether it be on pharmaceutical testing on animals or anything else, you lose a certain amount of business, and you incur costs. But sometimes people are willing to do that. So I think.
Hi there. One statement, one questions. When listening to you, and the key question, whether you know, where are the key differentiating factors between startups in Europe, Germany / Bavaria versus the peers here in the United States? I would say, talking about Berlin, for example, where the NOAA conference took place in June for the first time. This is clearly beside London a tech hub. The reason for, and there are also companies like, take SoundCloud, non-listed, value over 1 billion, is on an eye-to-eye level to the American peers, simply because the BIOS, by having a really international city, SoundCloud, for example, is founded by Scandinavian guys. They are located in Berlin. So there are companies, and there's proof that such business can be done in Europe and in Germany. Now the question would be, how is Bavaria sets themselves apart from, you know, locations like Berlin, and because you have certain areas, thinking about media, when thinking about Munich, for example, or the Wearable Technology Conference that takes place every year. So in which field do you think is Bavaria sticks out in supporting such young startup ventures?
You can start.
Socioeconomically or politically, I think it's a open society. I think they cultivate innovation. They support, I think, both in terms of, I'd say, organized loans and other access to capital. It sounds to me like oftentimes this brain train sounds like a wonderful resource to tap into as it relates to resources that otherwise may cost you full retail. Now, for those who run private businesses, we have some new government regulations here that make things even more expensive to do business in America. When you can stretch from a startup to a mid-cap and take advantage of those other, we'll call them entitlements for lack of a better word, or access to the resource pool, I think it's almost unique in an environment that's politically stable.
Can I just add to that? So there's also in Munich two, if some of you might have heard of the Excellence Initiative in Germany. That's an initiative where certain universities were considered excellent and received a lot more funding. And there are two in Munich, the Technical University of Munich and the LMU, Ludwig-Maximilian-Universität. And they're working very closely with industry. And there are a lot of startups, especially the Technical University of Munich is coming out. They are producing a lot of startups coming out of there. And so they're working very closely with industry. And so I'm not saying that it's better, but it's very strong in that area. That's actually their tagline, the Startup University.
Roman?
Well, I would say the Bavarian place is the place for B2B business. The Berlin business is mostly B2C business out of medicine, and nobody speaks of medicine. If you hear of Berlin, nobody speaks about medicine or pharmaceuticals. They're also in Berlin, but not 10% of them you have in other, for example, in Bavaria. So Bavaria is the place for B2B business. And we have in Bavaria, we have the great, alone in Munich, we have 6 of the DAX companies. And you have the possibility to work together as a startup with your customers, with your great customers, and you go international with your great customers. So it's much easier to get in connection. And you have technology-based companies much more in Munich than in Bavaria. I don't say that in Berlin is no technology, but a lot of business is IT business, is internet business in Berlin, and most of it, and then a big part of it is focused on B2C business. And so this is another business, and we are glad about that. There's some business in Berlin. You know, Bavaria pays about $4 billion to Berlin each year, and we hope that they are much successful in business. We pay a lower price to Berlin. So that's a joke on this. But we have a really stable business in Bavaria, and in this time, a lot of international interesting is on Berlin. It's in this goods, and they may have it, but it is not bad or worse in Munich or in Bavaria than before. And so we have a great business here. But I have one additional to my what I tell you before. We would be also interested and able to finance if some American companies would come to Bavaria and do this a really R&D a place together with a Bavarian company, together with a Bavarian or in Bavarian located Fraunhofer or Max Planck, for example. We have such cases. Then it would be also possible for us to invest in the American company together with the local stakeholders, and we have to have a common strategy for the whole company.
Can I just add one thing? Just on the topic of entrepreneurship, what our center has been getting a lot of inquiries about entrepreneurs that want to go to Germany and what kind of funding there is. So what we created on our website is funding for entrepreneurship in Germany. So those of you, but it's not just for Bavaria, it's for the entire country. So if you're interested, just talk to me later. I brought a handout too if anybody's interested in that.
Roger, is it a fair correlation to say that Bavaria could very well emulate or look like Silicon Valley East as it relates to innovation and the intersection, the capital, and an environment pro-business for entrepreneurs?
Well, I don't know whether it can be Silicon Valley. I don't know whether Silicon Valley 20 years from now will still have the leadership. It's sort of wedded to a certain history. The fact of the matter is that unlike Silicon Valley, there's much better skiing within
OktoberFest.
Well, they have, there's plenty of craft beers in Silicon Valley. But we do see a net exporting of people from California to other centers. The U.S. is not just Silicon Valley and Hollywood. It's also places like Salt Lake City, also 25 minutes from great skiing. But a lot of the high-tech businesses either were nurtured there or have moved there. So Salt Lake City is actually the fastest growing major city in the United States right now. And a lot of that is coming. So the diversification shouldn't bother anybody. If Berlin does better, it's better for Bavaria. If Berlin doesn't do better, it's not a zero-sum game, because what it does is it nurtures more and more talent coming to Germany, working with German companies, doing joint ventures, doing partnerships. So I don't think that competition makes any sense anymore than worrying that Plano, Texas has gone from being farmland to being sort of the heart of the Texas rejuvenation. And and if you talk to our friend Sue Gutenberg, he will tell you just exactly how similar Texas and Bavaria is. He's given many speeches along those lines. So I don't think that's a problem. The real question is, who are the true competitors for the next 20 years? And largely from looking at the scientific commitment to R&D, it's China. So the interesting question for both the U.S. and Germany and Bavaria, Europe, is how will the Chinese be? Will they be doing this in parallel? Will they be doing this in a leapfrog? Will they be doing this in partnership with us? And to me, that's the big topic for all young companies and medium-sized companies is where will the Chinese come in?
I was just going to take a different spin on which is specifically focused on medtech, so this may be going in a different direction, but for us, I'm up here as a case study of a young company that's moved to the area in the last year. It has been such a wonderful environment for us for two main reasons. One, doesn't just have great clinicians and great physicians, it has world leaders in their fields. So in Bavaria, we're accessing the best of the best for our clinical studies, which is crucial for the advancement of our devices. And then two, it actually has the most densely populated region of hospital beds. So if you're unfamiliar with med tech, getting clinical sites and getting the right patients for the right studies, it's a race. You got to get there and get the data, and that's where the value is built within our organization. And Bavaria has both of those things, so it was a no-brainer for us as a med tech company. There's a lot of other reasons why we were attracted, but specifically with young companies, that's a great environment to be in to really support that. That's different from the financial take on things.
Sure, Beth, tell us something a little bit more about your experience there. What were the gating issues? How you guys overcame it? Did you feel it was a push-pull? It sounds like there was an intellectual honesty, integration. Tell us a little bit more about your company.
Yeah, so I would say our decision to go to Germany was multifaceted. We were already in Europe. We do our manufacturing in Belgium, so the leap maybe wasn't as big for us. But now, of course, hindsight is 20/20. We would be in Germany whether we were in Belgium or not, because it's been such a great decision for us. As I already mentioned, physicians are key. The keynote or the opening talk about how they really expect kind of a working relationship between academia and the hospitals and the government. It sounds like it could be difficult to navigate those types of institutions, but it actually really helps create great programs for young companies. So physicians are great, tons of patients to choose from, and then more specifically, this may be too detailed, but the regulatory and the reimbursement programs specific to Germany, so not anywhere else in Europe, are amazing for young med tech companies, and I'm sure other companies as well, but that's been huge for us as we're setting up our clinical trials. The fact that we're going to be reimbursed from first implantation is great. We couldn't do that anywhere else, so that's fantastic. The business side of things has been really interesting for us as well. We've had great support from Invest in Bavaria to help us. A lot of the resources that you had mentioned that have really helped us get legs in Germany. We're going to be on the OTC next year and then cross-listing in Germany. And we have a board member here. I don't know where he went, but he's been really helpful in helping us navigate that strategy. We anticipate we're going to make a much bigger splash there. We're inundated in the society and the academics there, and really trying to advance things there, which will foster a great investment story here in the U.S. So it's a good marriage between the two. I would say our biggest challenge, which may seem silly, but we really try to create a company culture based on not what we're doing, but why we're doing it, which culture has kind of been a hot button item in the U.S., and especially with millennials, and we have young engineers that we're trying to recruit, and trying to bridge this U.S. culture, why are we doing it, with German clinicians and Belgian engineers is interesting, to say the least. That doesn't always translate, not that it's bad or good, but that's honestly been our biggest hurdle, is how do we unify a young small team from 3 different countries on 3 different time scales, and we're only seeing each other a few times a year. So I'll get back to you next year on how that's going, but so far so good, but that's been our biggest issue.
And it doesn't sound like either the culture or the language have been an issue. I myself lived in northern Switzerland for a long time and found both interesting and helpful. So you haven't run into any of the what I'll call simple roadblocks of language, culture, recruitment of resources?
No, not at all. Well, and it sounds like I'm doing a plug for Invest in Bavaria, which I'm not, but anywhere where we've had a major hurdle, we've kind of been able to put our hands up and say, we need extra resources, we need help navigating this situation, and we've gotten it. Another example, we were doing a friends and family round, just very, very small, expecting to have the majority of the poll to be from our U.S. family and friends, because that's where we're based. And Lord, I didn't know how many friends we had in Germany, but it was great. We had half of our investors step up, and it's just knowing who to ask, when to ask, and the support's there. We're in the midst of finalizing a grant program that's going to pay for our first clinical trial there. I mean, it's awesome. We're having a lot of traction very quickly, which is fantastic.
Well, that sounds very encouraging. We all know financing, liquidity is the lifeblood of any successful business, almost in any stage, and it's good to hear that it's been seamless for you guys, and it seems to continue to be seamless. Any last words or comments from our esteemed panel? I'd like to thank you for attending and invest in Bavaria. Thank you so much.
Thank you.